the Kiev regime, with the help of the US leadership and its NATO allies, prepared a large-scale offensive operation in Donbas in March 2022. So, to prevent it, because we have the confirmation of this fact, the Russian servicemen during the special military operation find some secret documents. They're preparing to attack my country and Donbas and Luhansk, Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republic. So we, now leadership, decided to start this special military operation. But we should know the genesis of this effect, because Russia now is doing everything and try to eliminate the threat coming from Ukraine territory, which has been created, in fact, by NATO countries and led by the United States. After coup d'etat in Ukraine, the new Kiev regime began to openly encourage Nazi sentiments in the country, infringe on the rights of the Russian-speaking population, and seek join NATO. In fact, they aimed at creating anti-Russia project. The territories with Russian-speaking population refused to recognize this regime and declared independence. That is why Crimea voted to reunite with Russia. And also Donetsk and Luhansk also declared independence because they were subject to genocide by Kiev, with the tacit approval of the collective West. For these 8 long years, NATO has been creating military infrastructure in Ukraine, opening biological laboratories, and nationals would like to develop a dirty nuclear bomb. Russia's concerns were not taken into account. Attempts to negotiate security guarantees with the United States, launched last December, came to nothing. The US rejected the Russian proposal. So we had no choice but to recognize the Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republics and to start our special operation. First of all, to demilitarize and to denazify Ukraine. In fact, we are fighting not only for the security of Russia, but also for the security of the whole Europe. I'd like to mention also some facts in the history of genesis of this crisis. Somebody maybe can ask you, but what has happened with Russia and Ukraine friendship? I think that our people are so closely intertwined by family ties, historical roots, Orthodox religious tradition, and culture that fighting a Russia against Ukraine is like fighting a Russia against a Russia. We fought side by side against Nazi Germany and honored the memory of our ancestors. Even since the collapse of the Soviet Union, we continued to live as a good neighbors, visited each other and maintained active cultural contacts. Ukraine had economic preferences from Russia. Before the coup d'etat in Kiev in 2014, Russia could not even imagine that it will have no other choice but to recognize Crimea and then Donbas republics of Donetsk and Luhansk. A few words about the Crimea. In 2014, as a result of the free expression of the will of the people of Crimea, the peninsula ceded from Ukraine, declared its independence, and reunited with Russia, of which it had been passed until, I'd like to know, until 1954. The reason for this was a nationalist coup d'etat in Kiev, during which, despite guarantees from Germany, France, and Poland, and then Ukraine President Yanukovych was overthrown, right-wing nationalist forces seized power in the country. Crimeans wanted to avoid a civil war. Unfortunately, later it was in Donbas. And with the participation of international observers, held an all-Crimean referendum in March 16. And 97% who took part in the voting voted for the entry of the Republic of Crimea into Russia. As for Donbas region, which included Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republic, it was also a part of Russia until 1920. But the history is very strange, madam. So we should recognize that Bolshevik and Lenin, the leader of the world's proletariat, during the civil war in Russia, with his harsh directives, literally squeezed the Donbas against his will into Ukraine. And the decision was motivated by a very simple reason, by the fact that this was the area inhabited by an industrial proletariat and had a very strong economic base. Ukraine, in turn, was more of an agrarian country. And in order to push the industrial development of this region, the industrial development of this country, it was decided to unite the industrial Donbas and the peasant Ukraine. But Donbas has never forgotten its roots. Kiev regime, pushed by the collective West, was not only doing their utmost to create a cultural and ideological gap between our fraternal peoples, but mocking the sacred memory of our common ancestors who defended the world side by side, as I just said, from Nazi Germany. They would like to rewrite the story of Ukrainian people, repressing the Russian-speaking population and massively killing also the people who didn't accept coup d'etat. During this past 8 years, Russia has been trying to find a political solution so that these areas remain inside Ukraine. But the Ukrainian regime has been bombing this area since 2014. These territories were put under siege and switched off from the banking system, food supplies, and payments of pensions. Besides, President Poroshenko in 2015 signed Minsk agreement, according to which the constitution would be amended and these areas would be granted autonomy. The decision was to be taken at the end of 2015, but nothing like that happened. Moreover, recently the Kiev authorities began to say bluntly that they are not going to fulfill these Minsk agreements. Meanwhile, Russia continued to be accused of failing to fulfill these agreements. High hopes were pinned on the President Zelensky, who replaced Poroshenko in 2019. But he ended up with calling his own people in Donbas just species. That is how he describes the people of this two region, Donetsk and Luhansk. This is rhetoric more pertain to Hitler's Germany, if you know the history. So it is it way to do or to go and to get back your territories and your own people. And I think that it's most intolerable is that so-called civilized West prefer to turn a blind eye to these events during all this year.